Hello and welcome. I'm going to show to you how the CHES 2016 challenge, which is a capture the flag based on some AES 128 encryption implementations, will work. So this year's capture the flag will be pretty interesting, I think. All the rules are on the website at ctf.nuae.com is where it's hosted. And there's two documentation pages. There's a quick page with rules and some FAQs, and there's a larger wiki page with everything else on it. So this year, the challenge involves, there's a website that you can upload stuff to, and it actually will physically run various challenges on a piece of hardware. So on the back end here, to give you an idea, there's a server, and there's two little ChipWhisper light boards attached to it. So this means you'll be able to upload a AES 128 implementation. It's going to do the power analysis of it and upload the traces back to the website for someone else to try and break. So the challenge is a little bit of both making countermeasures as well as attacking those countermeasures. And hopefully we have a good turnout for people doing both sides of this. So how do you actually do this? You can look initially on the challenges tab. So this will list all the challenges. Right now there's just one. We're going to have a few when it launches. And there will also be a white box crypto challenge. So this will be a case where there'll be another binary here that actually runs on a Linux system, and you can try to extract the encryption key based just on that binary. But first, let's look at the side channel power analysis example. So they have the source code is available, a hex file that was used to program, in this case, an X-Mega device, but you could compile that from the source code, and the trace file itself. So let's look at that first. So we can download it. It uses this 7-zip format here. And you can use there's engines for unzipping on basically any sort of computer. So Linux, Mac, Windows. All this, by the way, so this is detailed on the wiki page. So the trace file formats, everything like that, it's fully detailed. All right, so I downloaded that, and I'm just going to open it and pull it over so you can see. This is the right one. All right, so we have a directory here, and inside it has various recordings of power analysis. So each folder here has a different set of traces, and it explains what the formats are on this wiki page here. So some of them have a fixed encryption key with a random plaintext, and for these ones you know the encryption key. So the first four here are basically used for you to do some analysis of the algorithm. There's a few with a random encryption key, but a fixed plaintext, a random encryption key, a random plaintext, and a fixed encryption key and fixed plaintext. So depending what type of attack you're using, you might need various types of these traces. So for all of these, you know the encryption key. The second set of traces for the power analysis one is ones where you do not know the encryption key. So these have a secret key that's not recorded in any of the files, and your objective is to use power analysis to try to break this key. So again, we have the case where there's random plaintext or there's a fixed plaintext. So depending the type of attack you're using, you might need one or the other of these. So the trace format itself, let's look at one here. It uses a Python NumPy, NPY, so you can see we have traces is the data, the power analysis data, we have text in, text out, and what the encryption key is. So for this one, it's one where I know the key, so it's given to you. If I go to like a secret one, you'll see that you don't have that encryption key file. So because it's NumPy, using Python, if you want to convert to anything else, it's pretty easy to do it. So there's an example here that converts it to a MATLAB workspace. But you can convert to anything else you want. Convert to lists of text. If you have specific requests, feel free to let me know. There's a support form, and I can probably make a really quick script for you to convert to other text file formats. All right. Anyway, so let's say we want to attack this. So we don't have to register quite yet because we can download the traces like I just did. We could download the source code and take a look at what exactly it's doing. So why don't we do that too? In the meantime, I'll do a quick power analysis to show you how we actually go about submitting the key. So I'm using this example, Chip Whisperer software. Obviously, you can use anything you want. If you have some MATLAB scripts, you have anything else. So we will look where this file was downloaded. And we'll go open the project. So we want, for example, the known key, encryption key is fixed with random plaintext. So we open that project, and we can see the, oops, here we go. So this is the encryption operation. So there's 10,000 samples taken, and the sampling rate is at the same speed as the clock. It's synchronously sampled. The SNR is a tiny bit worse because it's only done at one time. There's no oversampling at all. But you can see, for example, here's each round of the encryption on this this really basic implementation. So if you have masking or anything like that, you can have a fairly slow implementation, and this should still capture enough useful information to break it. So let's try that again. And in this case, we know the key, so we can do a CPA attack. And we'll just see, how easily it'll break. So we can see here, it looks like we can pretty quickly break it. So let's try again with the unknown key. So we'll load the secret key with random. All right, do another attack. And so here we don't know what the encryption key is, so we can just let it run for a little while and hope that we eventually find the right one. So while that's running for a moment here, we can go back to the website, and we need to register now. So, okay, that should be long enough. We need to register now, so I'll make a live, how about demo video. And your email address will be used to contact you with updates as well as if you win. So make sure you have a valid email in there. Obviously for this, I'm not going to have it. And you can choose your country if you want to display that. Obviously the name's optional as well. It's completely up to you. And we'll put a password in here. Let's see if this works. And the terms of service are just the rules, so you should check them over to make sure you're eligible. Basically, most people will be. You'll have to be at CHES to get the prizes, is the other deal. All right, so you see, as soon as you register, it puts you on the scoreboard, even though you have 0 points. So you just will show up somewhere here. So we think we know the answer to this challenge here. So let's go ahead and submit an answer. So we select the challenge. There's only one right now. And we'll go ahead and write the encryption key in. So I'll just read the whole thing off like this. So the database, by the way, only has a hash of the actual key stored. So please don't try attacking the website itself. We're only interested, there's no way by attacking it to actually figure out what this key really is. So we've tried to make it as difficult as possible to get the key other methods. And if I'm right, so if you're wrong, let's just put a wrong one in first. So it tells you you're wrong. If you're right, you said you are correct. And you can go ahead and check your score. So you only get 10 points for any of these pre-submitted keys. So these stage gate keys, you get 10 points. Other ones, there's a bit of a bonus. So you get 50 points if you're the first person to figure out the secret key, 30 points for the next, and everyone else will get 10 points. And this may vary, so this may have changed, by the way, by the time the contest goes live. All the rules will be updated until June 1st. You also get points, so if I had submitted an implementation, you get a few points. There's no time bonus, obviously, because you have as much time as you want to analyze it. But you get some points for proving that you can break your own implementation. And the white box crypto one, because there will only be one or two of those, you always get a larger number of points if you're able to break the white box crypto implementation. All right, so that's how you would break the side channel analysis. You can see you can just insert the flag. The second question is, how might you actually submit something? So to do this, you are going to have to be uploading some source code. And so on the wiki page, it goes through what's needed, but basically you're going to have to provide a few generic functions here, and they will have everything you need for the AES to actually run on the server hardware. So you can download sort of a zip file here. So this is an example of what's involved in making it. So let's just make a new folder somewhere. All right, so I've unzipped this. So this is the example AES implementation that was on the stage gate there. So what we'll see is this is just sort of like a basic AES and C implementation. So that's just one of the examples. Basically, you just have to provide some of these, some of the functions here. So there's an AES.C file. It assumes you provide, and you'll see it has a few different functions that gets linked in. So this AES challenge.c, we look at it. This is where you have to provide the AES independent init, the key loading function, and the encryption function. So inside of these, you can call anything you want. The compiler isn't very smart, so it simply requires you to have this file, and inside of it, you're actually including directly your C file. So this is done to make it a little easier on our side without having to have you specify all the various files that you might have. So yeah, so that's about all that's needed. So we can, for example, let's take that directory, and even though it's called fake AES, it's a real AES. It's working. So let's go ahead and try this. So we're just going to upload that zip file. And when you hit upload, it's now going to upload it. It's going to try downloading it to the server, compiling it, checking that it works as AES. And if it does, it'll let you run a side channel power analysis. So at this point, it'll just say this until you go back to your submissions. And you can you may have to reload this page. So things can take a few minutes. These servers are running on the back end, again, going back to this diagram here. The website is where you're actually uploading stuff. This validation server is going to download it, compile it. It'll tell you if there's errors. If there's no errors, it'll run the AES and then validate that your AES works properly. Yeah, and then it will run the It'll run the system, so I paused it for a second here and it actually ran the whole thing. So it'll check the results. If there's any warnings or errors, it basically just gives you the full output here. If the compile goes okay, so if the compile fails, it'll tell you why here. If the compile goes okay, it's going to download it to the physical board, and then it just simply sends it a test vector and confirms that the results of the encryption are okay. If things are okay, the next step we can go here is request the power analysis measurement. So right now it actually forces you only have one choice. You've got to specify all these for the different types of traces. So it'll do 1,000 traces for each of, with the fixed key, random plaintext, random key, fixed plaintext, random key, random plaintext, and the fixed key and fixed plaintext only has 200 to save a bit of space. So when you're ready, you just hit generate power analysis waveforms, and then this will send it to the hardware. All right, so we'll send it. So you can now again monitor the status here. This one will take quite a bit longer because it's actually doing those power analysis measurements. So let's see here. So you'll see it says queued for trace run. Eventually the status will switch to something like trace power analysis running. Alright, so now that it's running the trace capture, so you saw it went from queued to running trace capture. On the back end, what's actually happening is there's a server that's doing the analysis on physical hardware. So here's a screenshot. This is the server that's running that I showed you earlier. So you can see it's doing some of the various analysis methods that were requested, and the encryption key is set to, a random key. This is the one where we know, so this will be written into the file you're given. So there's no indication, it just tells you it's running, so it will take, as I mentioned, some time before the actual running's done. And once it is, this will change to done. But in the meantime, we can look at, for example, while that's running, we can do other validation. If someone else is running a capture, then you just basically have to wait for them to be finished before your trace capture will run. So everything's just put in a queue. If there's many people, it will just take longer. So one thing we can test in the meantime here is I can show you what happens if I put an error somewhere. So let's just delete a semicolon and go ahead and zip this back up. So the idea of giving you the source code is you can actually compile this yourself, and elsewhere there's instructions on that, so you don't have to upload it to the server every time you want to try to see if it's going to work or not. Obviously that's not a very good way to debug everything. So let's see if this build server is working. So it'll go file uploaded. And then you can see it switched right away to compile fail. So you can't submit anything, and it gives you the output here. So it's giving you some error expected semicolon before return. So it's flagged that error. So that's what it looks like when you have an error. And you can go back to your submissions, and it'll give you the status of all of them. So this submission here, you just have to resubmit at this point. So right now there's no way to remove them. That might get added, but you simply would change the code, submit it as a new one. And this is still running the trace capture. So we'll wait till that's done to see what it looks like once the trace capture is complete. So after about 10 or maybe 15 minutes, it'll say done capture. At this point, you can download the traces. So this will give you that 7-zip file I showed you earlier, so you can do the analysis. So you should always verify, things look like they worked before going to the next step. So where's that? So in this case, I open the file. And again, you get the firmware file, you get all the various trace files. So including the ones where the keys are known and fixed. So you can do a quick check to see if they look vaguely right. You can load them, everything like that. So finally, we can submit this as a challenge. So let's say pretend this was a new version of AES. So you can just give it a name, and just some sort of basic AES 128. And maybe you had masking, maybe you had something like that. We could describe it as with masking and whatnot. You can write a longer summary here. So this one, you can also give it a fun name if you want, and this could be your description. And you can also include a link. So if you have some sort of PDF or something, you can link to that so that people can get more details. And that automatically becomes a challenge that people can now play with. So they get the trace file, the firmware, and the source code that you submitted. Yeah, so that's it. So this is the CHES Challenge 2016, a very quick overview of how it works, how you do the side channel power analysis, so you will also be able to download the white box crypto one from here. It'll have a special flag to let you know it's white box crypto, and how you run the virtual hardware lab, as well as submitting your own challenges. So hopefully you enjoy CHES Challenge and you get a chance to play with it and win some of the glorious prizes. So again, check in June 1st is when it starts. The server is running right now, so you can play anytime. But it actually matters from June 1st to August 10th will be the planned competition period. And this can still be updated at some point before we start, so check the website to make sure that's still accurate, and good luck.